Humanity sets the agenda.
The time is just gone, 11 minutes to 10 a.m. And the question we ask is, what does life look like behind bars? And from violence to isolation to assault by officials on inmates. And this morning we're joined by Edwin Naidu, who is a journalist at the Wits Justice Project, based in the journalism department of the University of Witwatersrand. The WJP investigates human rights abuses and miscarriages of justice related to South Africa's criminal justice system. Edwin, good morning to you. Welcome to the show.
Good morning. Thank you very much.
Well, Edwin, this piece that you have written, Live Behind Bars, is about survival of the sharpers. And this has been an ongoing discussion and debate on the magnitude and the level of violence that is experienced in our prisons and within the prison system. Edwin?
Well, yes, I'm hearing you. I think, the violence in the prison system is something that you get the officials trying to downplay by trying to project that everything's good. But, having spoken to an inmate at Mangaung prison in Bloemfontein, according to him, this guy is a former gangster. He says that, he's never seen anything like the violence that he's experienced at Mangaung prison. And, his words to me were that it's every man for himself, and you got to belong to a gang to survive. If you don't join a gang in prison, I think what I picked up is that you're going to be subject to harassment. You could be assaulted. So you join gangs to ensure protection and to ensure your safety. So according to this gent who I spoke to, he says that during the pandemic, they found that there were insufficient amount of guards to ensure that prisoners are even protected. So, this is not just at Mangaung. We also spoke to people at Breedevlei in the Western Cape. There's a prison there where there's similar instances of violence, favoritism of prisoners. And the one thing that I don't recall putting in the story, but we talk about no dignity for prisoners. At this particular prison, I was told that the lights are on 24 hours. So, you can't even sleep properly in prison. It's a really tough life for people behind bars. And I think, if you think about it, President Mandela once said that a society's heartbeat is the way it treats its people behind bars. It shows character because it's how you treat the lowest, not the highest. So I think he had a vision of rehabilitating prisoners, but we're not seeing that coming through. This was like 25 years after democracy, and I suppose it's a long road to go, but, the stories that we get are very harrowing.
Well, it certainly is from what you described in your article, and, I'm not too sure how accurate the numbers are. But you do obviously make mention to the fact that questions have been said to the Minister of Justice and Correctional Services with regards to looking at, the nature of the problem, how huge, or trying to understand how huge, how massive this problem is. And you do quote certain statistics. Now, how accurate are these statistics in terms of the violence and the crimes that take place in the prison system, Edwin?
Mm-hmm. Well, I must say the Department of Justice and Correctional Services came back to me afterwards. They provided input into the story. So we're going to be doing a follow-up on it, assessing what they say. But in terms of the statistics, we obtained the stats from the Judicial Inspectorate for Correctional Services. They called JICS, and this is an organization that's led by Justice Edwin Cameron, the former Constitutional Court judge. And, he's actually a very respected person, and I think Mandela labeled him as one of South Africa's heroes. So, we got the stats from his organization. We believe that, they were given the stats from correctional services, and it shows that, there were 437 complaints in prison uh, in 2019, 2020. So I think you also found that assaults in 2018 numbered 155. So the previous year, I think it was 231. So, you know, I think it's a tip of the iceberg. We're not getting a much more accurate picture if you listen to the voice of prisoners, which is why we're trying to probe and see just exactly what the situation is. There's something like 234 prisons throughout South Africa, so it's a hard job, but I think we're going to try and go to each one and look at the extent of violence in prison.
Yes, Edwin. And also, we know that the prisoners or the inmates, the violence that is being perpetrated against them doesn't only come from assault by inmates or fellow inmates, but the involvement of officials as well.
Yes, definitely. Officials are involved, and there's been a number of instances where you find that prison guards actually perpetrators, and there's a book that's come out by Ruth Hopkins, a former journalist at the Justice Project, and she did a study at Mangaung, which actually highlights huge instances of uh, prison guards allegedly beating up prisoners. There's been deaths as well. You can't prove it because it happened behind bars, but from what the evidence that came or testimony that came through from inmates, it actually alludes to complicity of guards in that, and there's been cover-ups as well. So definitely, the people who are meant to protect you behind bars could also be the ones that harm you actually.
Yes, and also I think another issue is with regard to the crowding in prisons because we know that this is another major problem at this point in time in terms of crowding, and because we've got quite a relatively high prison population, Edwin.
That's right. South Africa has the highest prison population in Africa. I think the 12th highest in the world. And since 1995, the number of incarcerated persons has increased by two-fifths. So overcrowding is a far-reaching challenge, and according to the Justice Cameron, it hampers good governance and administration. So, rather than the prisons being a space for rehabilitation, they're actually becoming more, unmanageable and punitive. So, you find that even the facilities, they, the state of some correctional service facilities is a huge concern. And, like overcrowding, it's the state of facilities. It's a fundamental issue, that's affecting because there's insufficient or, degraded facilities. And they say that this hampers the rights of prisoners. So I think it has a direct bearing on both inmates and officials as well.
Well, Edwin, thank you very much for that and for your time with us this morning. We wish you all the best. Please take care.
Pleasure. Thank you.
Edwin Naidu, who writes for the Wits Justice Project, and saying that, looking at one or two instances at the Mangaung, for instance, and also at the Brandplay Correctional Service Center, but saying that this is not just a once-off case. It's a huge problem. It's a massive problem at this point in time. And the Department of Justice and Correctional Services obviously need to correct the situation. Well, that's all we have time for this morning as we head towards the end of the show. Another edition of News and Views brought to you on Salam Media this morning. And also to our Al Ansar listeners in Durban, Pietermaritzburg, One Nation, 88.9 FM. We're glad you were able to join us this morning. So, from myself and the team, produced by Muhammad Arai, by Shazia Zubair Osman, and also controlled by Ziad Malatsi. From myself and the rest of the early morning team here at Salam Media until we meet tomorrow, inshallah. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.